Well, first of all, you need to know if an attack is brewing. This dovetails so well with what servant leadership is all about. And it was just a litany of hate.
Wow.
Right? It was just one after another. I'm going to report you guys to the Better Business Bureau. Worst customer service ever. You guys suck. Hi, this is Paul Gillin, author of New Influencers, Attack of the Customers, and others, and you're listening to ModernServantLeader.com.
Hello and welcome back to ModernServantLeader.com. I'm Ben Lichtenwalner, and I'm here today with Paul Gillin, co-author of Attack of the Customers, Why Critics Assault Brands Online and How to Avoid Becoming a Victim. Paul is really a veteran of the social media space. He also wrote New Influencers in 2007, Secrets of Social Media Marketing, and Social Marketing to the Business Customer. I'm honored to have Paul join us today and offer a little bit of insight for social media leadership to the leaders of and readers of ModernServantLeader.com. Thank you for joining us today, Paul.
Ben, it's always a pleasure. Great to see you.
Thank you. So, Paul, how should a company minimize the chances of getting a customer attack online? I mean, it seems as though these always come across as a surprise to organizations. So how can companies best mitigate their chances?
Well, it sounds a little bit trite, Ben, but having customer-focused policies in place is really table stakes these days. And, you know, most companies, their policies are not oriented toward the customer. They're oriented toward protecting the business. Mm-hmm. So thinking about your policies in terms of delighting the customer rather than protecting yourself is a starting point. Now, assuming that you have good products and you are a customer-focused business, it comes down to a listening strategy at first. And that is, you know, having your Google Alerts in place. If you're not going to spend money on a social listening platform, having Google Alerts in place, having keyword searches set up on Twitter and LinkedIn, and having monitoring what people are saying on your Facebook page, just looking for signs that there is some kind of a trend developing, that people are talking about an issue they have with you, and the conversations begin to spread, is the second thing you have to have in place. Third is you need to have people out there who are socially enabled and socially empowered and have the reputation and the context in the different spaces so that they can do your bidding if an attack begins to form. And, you know, a lot of companies make the mistake of when they're deciding who's going to be their social media presence, they look around the office and they find the youngest person and they put that person in charge of social media because the thinking is, well, you know, they're 23, they must know what they're doing. Yeah. Well, they may very well know how to use the tools, but that doesn't mean they know your company. That doesn't mean they're well equipped to be your spokesman. So I think you should have several people, ideally, people who are experts in Twitter, in LinkedIn, in Pinterest, if you will, people who are bloggers, who have credibility in those different channels and are really skilled at using the tools, but also understand your business. And so if you are attacked or if questions start to arise, they're in a position to tell your story with credibility.
Nice, yeah. Now, you mentioned several people. How does this play out for smaller organizations? I mean, if you're a smaller company, smaller teams, can it be one person, or how does that fit into it?
Well, I think smaller organizations need to focus. And one mistake that I often see with smaller companies is they'll try to have a presence in too many places. So they'll try to be on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Google+, and they've got one person managing this, usually as part of their regular job. And the fact is, this stuff takes time, you know, and having a valid footprint and an active presence in all of those spaces takes time. So the first thing I'd say is to focus. You want to know where your customers are, where are the people you're trying to reach, and start there and try to develop a credible and an active presence there before you branch into other areas. The other thing for small companies is really stick to what you're good at. Focus on something that you can do different than anybody else. What can you talk about? What's your area of expertise that you can communicate uniquely? And what is a persona you can develop for yourself that's going to be distinctive, that other people are going to be attracted to, because not just what you say, but how you say it. You know, and I always love to point to Skittles as an example. I know it's a consumer example, but they have a wonderful Facebook presence, It's just a unique and very appealing and funny Facebook presence. And people will follow Skittles because of of the way Skittles says things, not just what they talk about. It's a kind of a silly presence actually, but it's a very unique voice they have. You know, in a B2B example, you look at Constant Contact, which I think is a terrific example of a B2B company with a great social media presence and a voice that's all about helping its customers be more successful as small businesses. And everything they do is really geared toward that goal, and that comes across in everything they say. So have a unique focus your efforts in the few places where you're going to have the most impact, and have a unique voice that people will want to listen to because of who you are.
Nice. I like those examples a lot. In fact, my wife Trina is a big fan of Skittles, so she's really going to like the Skittles story and example. I'm going to have to make sure she checks out that Facebook page.
Skittles is part of the M&M Mars company, right? But the Skittles Facebook page has, I think, 7 or 8 times as many fans as the M&M's page. M&M's is one of the great brands in the world. Skittles has a much more successful social presence because I think they've done a better job of creating a unique voice for themselves.
Nice. So now, what does a company do though if those efforts don't work and or a customer attack does happen? What's the first thing that leaders should do when they feel they are in the midst of a customer attack on social media?
Well, first of all, you need to know if an attack is brewing, because there are always going to be people who are dissatisfied. Every company, even Apple, even great companies have dissatisfied customers. So there's a certain sort of level of noise that's going on out there of people who are complaining about you. And yes, they may deserve your attention if their problem seems to have merit, if they can be specific about a problem they're having. But in many cases, they don't. It's just people are going to solve their own problems. They don't really need you to intervene. Now, if you see an attack developing where you see a groundswell of conversations beginning to develop around something that is negative to your company, you want to have to be able to activate those people I spoke about earlier who have that presence and that social authority who can step in on your behalf and say, first, hey, what's going on here? Is there something we need to know about? What are the specifics? And secondly, we're looking into this. We're working on this, so that you can put a placeholder down and say that you are, and buy yourself some time, because attacks can develop very quickly. It can be a matter literally of minutes. It has been in some cases where attacks have gone global in a matter of minutes. So you need to be able to put your stake in the ground and say, we are working on this, we're aware of your issues, and we're going to get back to you. And then talk a lot as you work through the process and figure out if there is merit to what people are talking about, if something needs to be changed, if somebody needs to be satisfied. You're talking through that process so that they're constantly aware that you're listening to them and you're tied into what they're saying. The worst thing you can do is go silent, is just go away, because then you're leaving a vacuum for people to get on, to add to pile on the conversation. And the quieter you are, the more guilty you will look. So keep talking.
Fantastic. I think you really kind of led into my next question. In fact, you may have addressed it. Is that the one thing, not going silent, is that the one thing that you would suggest people never do in the midst of a social media crisis? Is that it, or is there something else you would say, definitely don't do this if you think you have a customer attack brewing or a social media crisis?
Well, never go silent. That is standard crisis communications practice. There's actually nothing new about that. The difference now is that going silent is an invitation for the crisis to spread into other channels. You don't have the luxury of waiting a day or two to respond to a crisis. Now you have to be there within minutes in some cases, or certainly within hours. Going silent makes you look guilty. It makes you look like you're being evasive. And one of the stories we tell in the book is of the Susan G. Komen for the Cure Foundation, which was embroiled in a crisis last year over its withdrawal of support for Planned Parenthood. This caused quite this was a very controversial decision. It was apparently a politically motivated decision, and people were piling on. A huge social media attack began, and Komen withdrew for 5 days. He didn't say anything, and that simply threw gasoline on the fire. So learn from their mistakes. The other thing you should do is never try to delete or censor people. And we've seen this a number of times in recent crises, particularly on Facebook, where companies under attack have deleted comments from the people who are attacking them. And it's just pointless to do that because those
Right.
people will simply go somewhere else, and now they're even madder.
Yeah.
It is we call it a giant whack-a-mole game. If
I
you
like
keep
that.
them down in one place, they're just going to pop up somewhere else,
Yeah.
and they're going to be twice as bad.
Yep, I like that analogy. I remember reading about it on the Susan G. Komen, and I love that analogy because it's so true. It kind of goes to what everybody says too about, there's always that concern about inviting the criticism on your sites or on your Facebook page. But, if you want them to pop up, you want them to pop up where you're watching and where you see them, right?
Exactly. I did a little exercise. I was speaking to a group last week, and it was a group of bankers, and bankers are very conservative about this stuff, and they had been talking all day about the fear of engagement, and so for this exercise, I went to the UPS page on Facebook, and I looked at all the most recent user comments, and it was just a litany of hate.
Wow.
Right? It was just one after another. I'm going to report you guys to the Better Business Bureau. Worst customer service ever. You guys suck. I mean, again and again and again down the line. And it's not just UPS. I mean, FedEx deals with this, DHL, they all deal with this because they're mistakes. These guys deliver millions of packages a day. They're going to get some of them wrong. But each of those is an issue for a customer. And they have become very skilled at responding to these complaints in a level-headed, even cheerful manner, taking the conversation offline and getting things resolved. Look at, if you want to see best practices, look at the airlines. Look at how Southwest does it. Look at how Delta does it.
Yep.
Look at the package delivery companies. Look at companies that serve a very large number of customers and where there is a constant likelihood that things are going to break, as they do in those industries all the time, and look at how they're handling criticism, because they really are setting the rules going forward for how we will engage online.
Wow, good examples. Thank you for that. Now, Paul, is there anything else, before we wrap up, is there anything else that maybe, after writing the book, you wish had gotten in there but didn't make it, or any other key concerns you think people need to be aware of when there's a customer attack in social media?
I wish every time there's a new attack, I wish I could add it to the book.
Yeah.
And we may go back and actually do that and do a revised edition with some of the new stuff that comes along. I am still amazed with how many companies make the same mistakes again and again. And this had happened again last week. I was made aware of an attack, and I really haven't investigated this so I don't want to mention the company name, but a company that was under attack, a big brand name that was under attack, that was deleting comments on Facebook, and I was like, haven't you learned? I mean, 3 years ago, Nestle got eviscerated for doing that, and it's happened several times since. I guess it's taking a while for people to understand the basics of how we communicate in a crisis situation. I think the one thing I would have liked to dug into more is training your employees, because I see a lot of the mistakes that are made are made because junior level employees without much training are put on the front lines to respond to often very knowledgeable critics. And they get steamrolled because they're really not in a position. They're not experts in crisis communication, and they're not good enough with the tools to really understand how to use them properly. So in the book we talked about Scott Monty, who is Ford's social media communications expert. I think is the best there is in terms of having a strong social presence, being active in all the channels, goes out to the conferences, he meets people, he's got a great reputation, he is such an asset for them. Last month, Ford got embroiled in a controversy in Europe over some ad concepts that were submitted to a contest that some people considered offensive. And Scott is the guy who gets out front of this and says, look, we're disavowing this. This was the agency did this. We did not authorize this, and we're taking care of it. Don't worry, it's under control. We're sorry this happened. You need. I wish I could have spent some more time talking about how you need to develop the skills of those people. Maybe another book.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. And I align with you a lot, Paul. In fact, there's actually a post on modernservantleader.com where I talked about, the sort of 3 key areas of training employees in social media. So I agree with you. I think that's a great way to do it. In fact, even possibly doing like certification programs or something. I've heard some people talking about.
There's been talk of that. Certainly, there's the APR certification. There are certifications and prices. I don't think social media certifications are rather controversial topics. We'll have those, but certainly it is an evolution of crisis communication. And I just wanted to say one thing about servant leadership, Ben, because this dovetails so well with what servant leadership is all about. If you look at companies that have truly customer-focused cultures, they are, they see the customer as the boss. Sam Walton's famous quote about the customer is the boss. The customer can fire us right up to including the CEO at any time by simply taking their business elsewhere.
Yes.
And when you have a culture like that, then I think you're in the best position to avoid attacks because you always know who's number one.
Yes. And for anybody who's watched this video, I did not pay Paul to say that, I swear. No, but that's exactly right.
I've been learning more about servant leadership because of your evangelism of it, and I think it's very very timely.
Well, thank you very much, Paul. I appreciate that. That's why I love social media, because it does. The two really do. I love the term you use, dovetail. They're well aligned. So, well, great. Well, thank you, Paul. Is there, for any readers or subscribers who want to follow up with you, maybe get the book or find out more about you and the services you offer, where should they go?
Well, I'm at Gillin.com, Gillin, and Gillin, Gillin on Twitter. So I would love it if you'd follow me. And attackofthecustomers.com is our Facebook page, which will give you all the background you need. And I appreciate the little plug there, man.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it is an excellent book. There's some case studies in here that aren't the popular ones that everybody's talking about. There's some new ones in here. I do highly recommend the book for anybody who's either a leader just dealing with social media today or working specifically in the social media space. It's a great resource. So thank you, Paul, and thank you for the book and for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ben. Love these hangouts.
All right, likewise. Take care, Paul.
So long.